To make something special, it takes two. That's why Smith & Co. only serves Nain Rouge beer, where there's two sister businesses that make a great pair across a courtyard. Whether you're trying the Nain Rouge mac and cheese with beer cheese sauce, Wisehead Porter barbecue, pulled beef, fried onions, and bacon lardo, or the perfect pizza fried on a marble slab, or a Korean fried sandwich, you'll find the right local brew to buddy up with your dinner. Opening at 4 p.m. Wednesday through Sunday, Smith & Co. is a great spot to end your day or start your night. Oh, and did I mention at the Smith & Co. happy hour, drafts, smash burgers, chili cheese fries, and mac and cheese are just $5 between 4 and 6 p.m.? Yes, friends, happy hour is back. For pub comfort food with a modern twist, you'll want to head to 644 Selden Street in the heart of Detroit's Midtown. Learn more at smithandcodetroit.com. That's smithandcodetroit.com. We thank them for their support of Daily Detroit. Hello, friends, and welcome to Your Daily Detroit. We're sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan for Friday, December 16th, 2022. Hailing from east of Woodward, I'm Jer Stays.
And from west of Woodward, it's Mr. Friday, Devon O'Reilly.
Hello, Mr. Friday. How are you?
I'm doing well, Jer. Excited for the holidays to be upon us. All sorts of fun stuff going on. Everyone's got a holiday party. My schedule is still packed through the end of the year. I'm still working and hanging out with people up until the bitter end here.
Oh, same. I mean, the last 3-4 days for me have been absolutely nuts. And I am sitting here with a gigantic coffee to power through Friday because it's been yesterday I had an event and then I was up at 4:30 in the morning to take someone to the airport.
Yikes. Well, Jared, let me ask you, this is a more of a personal opinion, but when can you drop some Baileys into that coffee? What time of the day?
On Fridays, I think
Yes.
3 o'clock.
That's fair. I'd go even earlier if you wanted to because it's Friday. But
all depends on my to-do list.
Right.
I don't drop it until my to-do list is to its last item.
Fair enough.
All right, today's episode, we're going to have hot takes and cakes, my friend. We've got a list of listener questions, and I figured I'd frame it over breakfast because along with my coffee, I went ahead and whipped up some pancakes to do this right. Hot takes and cakes. I feel like you got to have a pancake or some breakfast item. Are you a pancake fan, Devon?
You know what? Not really. When I was younger, I ate a lot of pancakes. I think kids naturally tend to love pancakes. I don't go for them as much anymore. It's really a sweet food for me, but I suppose you can make them differently. So I'm not the biggest pancake guy or connoisseur per se, but you clearly do love your pancakes.
I do, especially with raspberry or blueberry. You got to have some fruit with it. And if you're going to do a syrup, I think it's got to be the real deal. And maybe that's just because my dad was born in Canada. But you got to have the real deal. I am not a fake syrup person. I'd rather go without and just do some fruit than to go for the fake stuff.
That's a really smart call, Jerry. And I think I agree with you. I mean, I still do have pancakes sometimes. And I will say it's one of those make or break things. If you get a good, natural, go for the $10 syrup, the pure maple syrup, and it is worth it.
Revolutionary. So what do you have for breakfast?
Well, let me tell you, Jared, I'm going to flip it around just a little bit. Now, I like to use the word brunch because my preference to breakfast always is brunch, especially on the weekends, which means, to me at least, that you throw a mimosa, Bloody Mary, or something like that in there. But I think that the best brunch breakfast food is the Benedict. And I mean, what I like about it is the versatility. So yes, eggs Benedict, you picture the Canadian bacon, the English muffin, the hollandaise sauce, the eggs over it. But you could do so much with it. I mean, in all my years of brunching in Detroit, I've seen everything from a lobster Benedict. Grand Trunk had that, a more rich, decadent type of lobster Benedict. You could do Benedict where you swap out the English muffins and put in jalapeno biscuits. I actually think Hudson Cafe does a really good one. Maybe it's called the Voodoo Benedict. That's a very kind of southerny New Orleans type of take on it. It has shrimp and a cornbread biscuit. So I just love the versatility of the eggs Benedict. I think it is the best brunch food in my opinion.
Well, I will have to make you eggs Benedict sometime because that is one of the things I like to make myself. It's kind of a high level bar for a restaurant to pull off a Benedict really well. And I find that people have one of two feelings about Benedicts. They either absolutely love them and it's usually because of the egg setup, because that egg's usually a little softer. That is usually the deal breaker for people on the Benedict.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it is important. The runniness of the egg, that needs to be done right, or else, yeah, you can ruin it. All right, Jared, we're gonna plug along with this episode because we got some fan mail. We're gonna call it mailbox, fan mail, mailbag. I think mailbag is the best term for it, Jared. But we've got a mailbag to dig into. So let's get into it. We've got questions from our listeners.
Yes, this one is not a hot take. This, I think, is one of the ones that's not a hot take. But I wanted to include it because there is a guy who we in the studio in our Slack call the Chamberlain Bakery guy.
Hi, my name is Paul, and I have relatives in Dearborn. I actually live between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, right in the middle. Just want to say the podcast is awesome. Has anybody remember the Chamberlain Baking Company? I just heard you love baked goods. So do you know if anybody's going to try to get Chamberlain Baking Company going again? Because it was the best. My uncles would always bring it down when they visited us, and the bread was delicious.
Jer, I was stumped, and I asked my family with roots in Dearborn. I wasn't getting a lot, so I couldn't help our friend out here.
Full credit to the intern guy Lucci. I mean, he is great when it comes to digging up research and things. He tracked it all down for us.
Okay, well, now I got to hear this.
All right, now if this is all the right one, and I think it is, I should have known a little bit more about this because this was actually in the Slavic and Baltic communities, which is my mom's side of the family. But anyway, we're East Siders, so maybe that's why we didn't know about it. But anyway, it was known for, yes, sourdough for multiple people, rye, and it was in the middle of a block on Chamberlain Street near Woodmere Cemetery. So it was a bakery named after the street that it was on. And in this crazy little commercial building, kind of left over from the days like when Detroit had no zoning. You've seen some of the old pictures where you're like, house, store, house. Mm-hmm. It's still standing, according to Google Street Map. It's there, but it's no longer a bakery. I don't know exactly what's in it. It started in 1924 by Lithuanians, I believe, which is pretty cool. It was in business until 2002. It got bought by Alexander and Hornung, which that name. That's been around for a while in Metro Detroit, like meat packing, processing, all that stuff. And then eventually got bought by Purdue, like near the pandemic. So that's kind of the chain of ownership with that one. Interesting to see that there's kind of like still some roots to that there, but it's just, I understand that it's not the same because like there's a huge difference between fresh bread and factory bread, or bread that's done a different way versus one that's done like with infused like vitamins and whatever. And I'm not knocking Wonder Bread because look, I still love me a good peanut butter and jelly sandwich. My favorite road trip sandwich is a ham and cheese with a little bit of lettuce on Wonder Bread. Like, I'm not being like bougie about this, but I think whether it's taste, I also think kind of health-wise, everything else, like a good neighborhood loaf of bread, a fresh loaf of bread is a whole different vibe than like the packaged stuff.
Jared, I'm a fan of bread, sure, in the right format, but I wouldn't say I'm the biggest fan of bread, so I'm not your guy to go to for all things bread. I'm more of a wrap guy. I do wraps over full sandwiches. It fills me up too much in some cases. So
fair, but I would have loved to get a sourdough from Chamberlain or a rye and like go ahead and get a chunk of like good butter and just rip it off.
Jesus.
That probably explains the difference between you and me.
Yeah, well, that's not something I would ever even fantasize about or imagine. So you got me there, Jared.
Here's another food one from Al. He's feeling major Dutch Girl Donuts withdrawals. I am too, a bit, without a doubt. In fact, on Daily Detroit a few years ago, there's some posts where I actually ranked every Dutch Girl donut against each other. I joked back with him about doing some sort of Mission Impossible venture to try and get the recipes, like Tom Cruise, get in there, get the recipes, get out, no one ever knows.
You could give it a try, Jerry. We'll have to suspend you from the ceiling and just drop you into the kitchen or the back room there.
Yeah, trade the bread for the donut so that the weight's the same.
Yeah, there you go. Use the bread for something. Yeah.
But the question is where to go next.
That's a big question and a really good question. I mean, I think we should definitely get some listener feedback on that, but I think we can make a couple suggestions. And I have one that I know is a good option, and then I've got one that's a big question mark that I would like to put to the listeners and you, Jer. So for one I know of, There's still a Donut Villa, on Verner over there in Southwest Detroit. Old school style donuts, cool vibe. I would definitely say that's still an option, right?
Okay. I could see that. I haven't been in a minute. I need to go visit.
There's a place now that opened up called Detroit Donut in the Penobscot building.
Really?
Yeah, and I passed their sign. They advertise like their breakfast sandwiches and like hot dogs and hamburgers, which I always thought was kind of a weird sign. But I think they do donuts. They're called Detroit Donut, and they seem to have donuts on their website. So as we're talking about this, that's kind of inspired me that I may have to do a little bit of a recon mission over next week when I'm downtown to a Detroit Donut in the Penobscot.
For me, my 2 suggestions, I'm going to say, because he seems to be Woodward Corridor, Donut Cutter in Berkeley.
Yeah.
Is really solid if you like the yeast donut, because there is a difference between the cake and the yeast donut. They're 2 different vibes. Now, if you're going to go for the cake donut, I'm a big Yellow Light fan over there on the east side on Jefferson between Chalmers and Alter. But that's a different vibe because that is a cake donut and there is a difference.
There's a big difference, and I think that changes whether people, if you like one, you may not like the other, and so it does depend. If you're looking for a yeast donut and you show up at a cake donut place, you're going to be disappointed. So before the next listener question, Jer, I want to tell you I found out that the Sullivan's Steakhouse chain, which I found out is kind of a small chain, is coming to the Book Cadillac Hotel, going into the old roast location. So a press release that we've seen says that the 8,500 square foot space will also get a patio. This is the old roast. You can kind of picture where that is. They didn't have outdoor seating at roast, so this will be something new to add. Sullivan's has 13 locations, but this is the first in Michigan. I hadn't heard of it before. Plus the old 24 grill space we talked about. There's still a yet to be named restaurant that'll go in there. So this to me was news. When I saw Sullivan's, I didn't know. I figured if it's going to go in a hotel, if it's going to go in a Westin, it's probably not a first of its kind restaurant. Have you heard of it or?
Actually, I have been to a Sullivan's, sir.
You've eaten at Sullivan's?
I have. Now, it has been a while. Sullivan started in the 90s, I think.
Oh.
And I used to travel quite a bit for work, and I went to their Charlotte location. I mean, it was a steakhouse. It was solid. I don't remember anything negative about the experience whatsoever. Admittedly, like I was more in like a prep discussion kind of thing than like when I go out as much nowadays, where it's like, oh, I'm going to pay extra attention to the food. Solid cocktail. I remember nothing bad about it.
Okay, so I'm actually really positively inclined here with this because what I think, to me at least, seeing this is like this is the perfect thing for this space. It's a hotel, so having a nice, maybe kind of dark, cozy, maybe a little old school steakhouse. I mean, that's right up my alley, being a lover of London Chop House, and it wouldn't be an episode of Daily with Devon if we didn't mention LCH, right? So if it's anything like that, if it's kind of like just a traditional steakhouse, I love it. I was looking at the menu and the website a little bit. They've got breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That sounds like the type of place you could grab a power lunch. They've got happy hour menus. They actually have a section on the menu called a 2 martini lunch. So I am sold. It just looks like a place that I would actually end up frequenting a lot, given I work downtown so much. I mean, I can see going to Sullivan's for business meetings, for after work stuff, all sorts of things. So I'm excited for it. The bar, I want to say the bar is low, Jer, but it doesn't need to be like the best steakhouse in the world. It just needs to be a cool place to hang out, take meetings, meet up with people.
I noticed something on this website that I think might do well here. There's a fare for 5 for $115. So it is this thing where you basically get everything that you need, 4 courses, 5 people, which, Engineer Randy just sent me the link to something that was 2 people for $110 and from another place, right? So to get this kind of food value for that amount of money, like you can pick a starter, which is like either cheesesteak or shrimp egg rolls. You do a salad. You can choose one of 2 proteins, which is of course, your salmon, ribeye, or mignon. And then a couple of sides, which is out of your average, like steakhouse sides, right? Asparagus, Brussels sprouts, mashed taters, mac and cheese, right? $115 to feed 5 people. That's a good deal.
I'm looking forward to it, Jared. So it says they're looking to open mid-year, which would be great. I mean, that's a quick turnaround if they can open up within 6 months and put us at like kind of an early summer opening.
This is one from John, who asked, if there was one thing you could do to change Detroit for the better, what would it be? Devon, I have an idea here, and it's a very, very policy nerdy one. I also will say, before we answer this, and I will answer it, there is never and will not ever be one thing. So I think it's what's one thing that I could pick that will make a bunch of impact.
So there's no money, there's no dollar amount to this idea?
We did a piece with Daniel Arking and talked about like, well, if Mackenzie's got money, right? Like you just got money. Or you have power to make a change or change something in policy. Mine's going to be like a couple apart, but I'm going to count it as one because I think it all works together. So what would you do?
All right, Jared, if money wasn't an object and I had Mackenzie Scott money or whoever is being, the most philanthropic with their billions these days, you know what? I don't care if it's kind of obvious. I would say specifically a expanded light rail system that at least covers Wayne, Oakland, and near Macomb County. And it just gets people a free light rail system that truly connects just our basic corridors, the Michigan Avenue, up Grand River, up Woodward, out on Gratiot, along Jefferson. Even if it just covered those major kind of spokes of the wheel, but brought people to and fro from downtown for free or maybe very little cost, I think that would just go an incredibly long way to expanding opportunities for people for work, for play, for living. I think it would change the whole dynamics of the region.
Interesting. Yeah, mine, I think my answer is not as regional, but I think it would have some impact. I think that there needs to be the subsidy to completely rehab the tax situation in Detroit so that you can enable more people to invest. So as you can see, there's a number of places that have done really well in the city that happen to also be like neighborhood enterprise zones. If people don't know, that means like your taxes for an amount of time, your property taxes basically become the state average. And looking at those areas' success for residential buying and things like that, I can't help but think like that is a good move across the board. Now, that's going to take a lot of money because you have to backstop the city budget. Now, the city gets more money from income taxes and things than it does property tax, but you have to backstop the city budget and you have to find a way to backstop the school's budget because a part of that tax bill is the Detroit Public Schools. So there's a couple of pieces to that, but I think that getting that down would encourage a lot more people to stay. It would encourage a lot more investment. And it would have the added benefit of making sure that current Detroit residents, it was easier for them to stay in their homes. And that's really important too. You do something to enable other people to succeed as opposed to doing like one thing that just fixes that one area.
Right. And I think that's where we're both going with our ideas is something that can really move the levers on the grand scheme. I think between the two of our things, if both could happen, man, I mean, that would just be unbelievably transformational. And it's stuff that we've talked about for so long. Both are things that are being worked on, Jared, but they're just such large levers that unfortunately, I know you and I have gone back different topics under this umbrella. It just feels sometimes like we're not going to be able to move these levers in anything fashion. But if you'd snap your fingers and get a few $1 billion, maybe we could.
All right. A couple more before we go. Kyle is in their 20s. This is a question for you, Devon, a little personal. And thinks that if he has a kid, he can't do anything fun anymore. Devon, you just had a kid and you still go to places. I listen to the show. You visit all these fun places. How do you do it?
Gosh, Jared, wow. This is Kyle wants the secret sauce. Well, I will say this. First of all, it depends on, Kyle being in his 20s. It depends on what end of the 20s you're on. If I'm being completely honest, if you're in your early 20s, I'd say to hold off. I'd say to live it up in the city and go, kind of just experience it all without kind of the additional responsibility of a child. If you're on your late 20s, yeah, go for it, and it totally can be done. I think there is a little bit of an understanding that this is going to completely change your life, obviously. And so it'll change everything you do, but it doesn't mean that you can't do the things that you used to do. It just, there's one of two things, Jared. Either you just take the kid with you because they're just a little baby. And I only have 6 months of experience in this, but it's a baby. You just take it with you places. It's okay to take it places. That's fine. It can go anywhere you can go for the most part. Or you leave it, you find a good, childcare babysitter. Hopefully maybe parents or family are around to help with watching the kid. And you still get to go to your dinners with the wife or significant other. You still get to go out on the weekends here and there. Maybe I can't spend a whole day, a whole Saturday or a whole Sunday fun day doing stuff. But Sunday fun days become a little bit different. Maybe it's going out somewhere for brunch, but then coming back and spending time with the baby. So you can make it work. You can absolutely make it work. Follow me for more tips.
I just love that there was a personal question in there.
All right, Jer. Final question I'm pulling out of the mailbag here. And this one's for you. William asks if there's anything that we need in the studio. And as the kind of proprietor of the studio, you would know this.
Well, really, in some ways, this is an Engineer Randy question, but I'm also glad to answer it. So there's like 4 key things that we kind of need going into 2023, and in no particular order. I think first, one thing I'll mention, and this is all up on our buymeacoffee.com wish list, just happens to be there, but we need a new mobile mic, probably a couple of them, for doing stuff on the road. People like when we go do interviews at places, but the gear we have right now isn't really designed for that. And this will be a lot more forgiving, be able to hand out 1 or 2 of these, probably still use the old stuff too, so we can get more stuff on the road. We can do more interviews on the road. We can get more of that stuff. And, that's it's called a Mic Track M2. That's actually coming out in January. Excited for that because it's kind of the tool we've been looking for. We need new headphones. Without a doubt, we wear through them. I've replaced the pads on these 3 times. The ones I'm wearing now are like the plastic are falling off. So that would be a great one to do. We need more USB interfaces. There's some voices and some people we'd like to have more often. But I know that listeners do not like when we do phone calls or stuff that sounds more like Skype. So some of these interfaces would be great to get to people that I'd like to have on the show more often, more regularly, but they just can't come in. And then finally, if you look on YouTube and look up Spirited Man, that's the kind of guy I am. Like the lights in here are put together from like Home Depot parts. I didn't go out and buy fancy light panels. I got the right color temperature bulbs and like made it work. I put down my own floor. I hang my own drywall, right? Like I'm a guy who likes to build stuff, but there are certain things I can't build, and I can't build my own MacBook Pro. I've already repaired the keyboard on this. There's a USB thing on the fritz. Been using the same computer since 2015. And so I just know in 2023 that we're going to need that. And that would be huge. But that's a huge, huge ask. But that's like on the wish list for the future, Devon.
I love that we end this episode with a little bit of the Daily Detroit Jer Christmas list here.
You know what? When you get to be my age, when it comes to physical things, you want stuff that makes your life a little bit more pleasant. And that includes socks. I love good socks.
You're attracted to your socks.
I'm attracted to really nice running socks. Like, I'm always looking for good running socks.
That's not a luxury, though. Coffee and socks are not a luxury.
All right, give me a luxury. What luxury should I have?
Private plane.
Larry, I'm on DuckTales.
Well, you also, you could use those in the studio. That could be a studio thing as well.
As always, feedback, dailydetroit@gmail.com. Keep it coming. We've never seen as much feedback as we're getting in the last few weeks on different episodes. Ideas, things you want us to cover, that kind of stuff. A newsletter, dailydetroit.substack.com, where we're doing headlines and catching you up with what's going on around town throughout the week. Devon O'Reilly, it's so good to see you.
Good to talk to you, Jer, and I will see you soon.
Absolutely. With that, I'm Jer Stays. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.